Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, Instagram. It is Thursday. It is 9:30. It is Cotton Cuts time. We are so happy you joined us. I see folks checking in from all over. I see Texas. I see Florida. I see Missouri. You guys, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to leave a comment and let me know where you're checking in from. For those of us in St. Louis or in the Missouri Midwest-ish area, we're in that very weird time where 60 degrees feels warm. And so we're wearing, my boys this morning were like, we don't need to wear a sweatshirt. It's going to be 62 degrees today. And it got Dominic and I talking, the boy who sews, about how different 60 degrees feels when you're coming off winter and how warm it is versus 60 degrees when you're coming off summer and how we're like curled up in blankets and having fire pits because 60 degrees feels so cold. So we are thankfully in that blissful state where 60 degrees feels amazing and it feels fantastic to be outside. And people are sitting outside at work having lunch at our picnic table because it is amazing. Good morning. I see Alaska. Holy cow. It must be super early where you are, Janae. Okay. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to start, as we always do, with answering questions submitted by you guys. Go to cottoncuts.com/live to submit a question to be entered. Paula picks these and puts these in front of me. I never know what they're going to be until I sit down. She likes to stump me sometimes, so I might get some interesting ones. I do have some accessories as I sat down, so I'm thinking I might need some help as I go through this. Okay, our first question comes to us from Rachel McCollum. Thank you for your question, Rachel. As always, appreciate it. From Brooker, Florida. Are there any plans to add a wish list, save cart, or favorites to the website? Rachel, that's a fantastic question. So we are actually we're working on migrating our website off of the current platform. The current platform that hosts our website, that has all of our pages and all of our checkout, it actually doesn't have the abilities to have a wish list, a saved cart, or a favorites. And so one of the reasons why we're migrating is for those features. We want those features. That's kind of a basics to have a website these days, as well as many, many, many other things. As some of you have known, there's kind of this funky, if you're updating your credit card, you can't update it on the website. You have to go to managing your subscriptions. And so we really want to simplify that process. The website was fantastic for a lot of the features that we added to this point, but now we're looking at the next iteration. And so we are rebuilding a website right now. We hope to have it up in about 3-ish months, hopefully in time for the next signups. But these are great suggestions, Rachel. You've identified them. These are things we want to have on our website, but we don't have today. So thank you, Rachel, for the suggestion. That is going to go to our development team as kind of a thumbs up on features and things we definitely want to see. I'm checking in. So, oh my gosh, Rachel she's in Florida. I think Rachel, you might have been the one that asked this question. It says it's a high of 83 in a week. We'll hit the 90s. Holy cow, that is summer here. That is summer. Let's see here. Yes, Rachel. It is Rachel that submitted the question, and she says, that's awesome. So excited as I love to make a save cart favorite. We've grown, and it's time for your website to follow along. Agree. Our website grew for where we were. Now we need to grow to where we're going and all the new programs and features we're adding. Yes, Gianna, yay for a fancier website. We definitely need some help there for sure. All right. Thanks so much for the question, Rachel, and I hope you enjoy what we're about to talk about. Our next question comes to us from Michelle Showalter. Michelle, I see your name frequently. You're all over our store. Michelle is asking a question from Versailles, Kentucky. So question, labeling each section. This is my first Cotton Cuts experience and my first pattern quilt. I need, capital letters, I need to print out flyaway section labels, for example, 1A, 1B. I don't want to be scratching my head which section is which in a few months. How many numbers will there be? How many letters will there be? Plus, does this change from mystery to mystery? I loved your warning not to use stickers in your YouTube video, getting started with the puzzle mystery quilt. I had planned to print sticky labels. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Thanks. Sorry, I wagged my finger at you. I feel like, so I'm sorry. That's like a mom thing. I am real sorry. I just did that. So we're going to just take that away. All right. So to Michelle's question. So something we started with Flyaway is we printed out section labels. This actually came to us from a longtime member, Trish Reed. And she suggested that we actually give everyone a sheet of labels that as you sew each section, you could clip them and you could pin them or clip them to each clue as it is done and completed. And so what this is when you print this out, This is specific for just flyaway, and it is specific for a small or a large. It has everything that you need on it here. And so you don't need, it will change from mystery to mystery. It is specific for flyaway, which is why we printed flyaway on it, so that way you can see it. And it is also something that it's small versus large. So if you accidentally print the small and try to use it for a large, it's not going to work, and vice versa. If you prepaid, these files are available in the Cotton Cuts evidence locker, and I believe they were attached to the email that you received for Clue 2. If you're a flyaway detective and you joined before we shipped Clue 2, these were in your Clue 2s. If you joined since, they're in your Clue 1. But the idea is just to make it simple to label them. Now, a lot of folks just, they'll take the clue that they sew and they just put it inside of the paper clue and put it back in its clear bag. That works. That's fantastic. You don't have to use these. These are just a helpful aid for those that want to and like to use them. Now, with all of that said, definitely to Michelle's second part of this, try not to use any stickers or anything sticky near fabric. This is one of those like tried and true. We don't do anything that's sticky based in the shop. We don't use Post-its anywhere near fabric. Oh, hey, Michelle. Michelle's right there. She joined us. Hello. Welcome, Michelle. So we don't use anything sticky near fabric because it will transfer. Even at its finest amounts, it's going to transfer to that fabric. And what's going to happen is when you iron and press it, it's going to burn slightly. Over time, you're going to see it. It's going to cause your fabric to yellow. So we try to keep as much adhesive and stickiness away from the fabric as much as we can. So please, please, please do not try to use stickers on it. Anything that's non-sticky as well. So that's what these guys are for. That's why I was sitting here. Thank you, Paula, for thinking ahead and having this ready for me. Fantastic. All right, those are our questions for today. If you have a question for us for our next show, go to cottoncuts.com/live, submit your question, and it'll be here when we sit down. Anything can ask. Today we learned about website auditions as well as quilt labels for flyaway. So thank you all for all of your suggestions. All right. Don't forget to remember to give StreamYard permissions if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube. I see you guys are doing a fantastic job. Thank you guys so much for checking in. Good morning, Joyce. Good morning, Catherine. Good morning, Kristen. It's lovely to see everybody. Let's see here. Quilting Junkie Donna Winiger says she made felt 2x2 squares and used Wonder Clips. Yeah, so I think you could probably transfer these labels to the felt 2x2 squares and then use Wonder Clips, and that would be a fantastic use as well. They are one time only, so when you use that, make sure that you're mindful. It's only going to be for flyaway, but if you're doing multiple flyaways, it definitely helps as well. All right. So what is happening in the shop this week? Okay. As always, this is like my favorite section because there's so much always going on in what we are doing. So we are almost caught up. We are like on the verge of getting caught up on all the projects. And I cannot be more excited. As I look out, I see all the Tim Holtz, I see all the Floral States, and I see Clue 9 of Wild West. The team is putting in tons of good work to get everything caught back up. So Wild West Clue 9 is going to ship tomorrow. I cannot, we've been talking so much about so many other things. I feel like Wild West is just kind of the one that just keeps going. It keeps shipping on time. Everyone keeps doing it. And that reveal is coming up on April 25th, guys. I love the reveal shows. There's always costumes. We've got my cowboy hat hanging out over here for the big Wild West reveal. We've already got all of our ambassadors have already put together their quilt tops. They've all received their Clue 10s, and so they're working on getting them quilted in time for the show. Ian, as he always does, has put together his guests. I can tell you, we'll see how close he actually gets. So Ian has put together his guests and already shown us what he thinks the final quilt design is going to look like, and we will talk about that more during the reveal. All right, for Floral States. So all Floral States are shipping this week, maybe into Monday. We started shipping some on Tuesday. So some of you might already, oh, Jana, sorry, I skipped ahead. Yes, I was talking about that. If you have completed all 9 of your clues, which everyone should have by this weekend, early next week, when you get them, you should be eligible to do this. Feel free to get a design wall, lay them out, and show us what you think your guess is going to be. Paula is going to take a look. She'll scrub all the Facebook groups, all the Instagram, and she's going to compile some of what your guys' best guesses are and see how close everyone comes to guessing the final design. This one is fun. This one has some interesting design nuances to it that might be hard to guess proactively, but as always, we love to see how close you guys have come. I think Ian has gotten it once in 12 quilts that he has done, and I think maybe 1 or 2 other people might have gotten them over the years. But guys, we get like 2,000 people doing this, so it is fun. I challenge you guys to come up with what you think Wild West is going to look like. All right, Floral State started shipping earlier this week. We're still shipping those. They are still moving out the door. Tim Holtz is immediately following it. And so we're going to ship the yellow and the neutral together. Guys, those neutral fabrics are actually a lot of fun. My team is cutting them, and we think they're our favorite of the batch. Of all the ones we've cut, the neutral fabrics are the most fun. And so all of that is getting die cut in preparation to go out the door. Platinum. We talked about Platinum a couple weeks ago. So Platinum is our membership that lets you choose which membership you want. I'm starting to watch Lord of the Rings while I'm on the treadmill because I've seen that movie like 1,000 times. So surely, I can be on a treadmill watching it. And so I feel like Platinum is the one membership to rule all the memberships, the one ring to rule them all. Because for Platinum, you get to pick if you want Classic, if you want Java, if you want Chroma Super Pop, or if you want Modern Maker. And so those emails are going out to everybody. Their first one's going to go out, I think, on Tuesday next week. And so for those of you that are Platinum members or just want to see pretty fabric, this is what our lovely Java bundle looks like this month. And so this one is April's. It is super like springy, pastel-y. Normally April is not like this. Like this is a fantastic April bundle. And so I'm going to hold it up to the camera so you guys can see. We've got fun like spring pastel colors in here. If you're a beachy batik person, this is going to be a lot of fun for you guys. So that's what Java looks like. Chroma this month is violet, not purple, violet. And so if you guys, you'll get your choice between all of those options if you're a Platinum member, or you can just sign up for Java and just get lovely coordinated batiks each month. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to come back to what's happening on Saturday because that's kind of a big chunk of what we're going to talk about for this update. Don't forget cuddle books before the first of the month to be included for next month. So those cuddle books, when I went to the quilt show, people loved the cuddle books. The pre-printed panel, they have all the directions on them. We'll send you a book each month, every other month, every 3 months. So say, for example, you don't have that many kids to gift these books to in your life, then quarterly might be the best way to go. Or perhaps you're in a phase, and we all go through life's phases. Perhaps you're in a phase where, there's a baby being born every month, in which case you might need lots of books. These make fantastic gifts. They are also much easier than, trying to make a baby quilt every week. That's kind of I've been in that phase. I definitely went through baby quilt making phase. And so the cuddle books are a fantastic alternative to that as well. For Flyaway, if you can believe it, the last call for Flyaway is next Friday when we ship Clue 3. We always close PMQ signups by Clue 3. And so we will be shutting down signups next Friday. And then we're planning for our next mystery, which is going to be Under the Sea. So that one will sign up in May. We're going to have colorways up on the website at the end of April, beginning of May. This is a good one, guys, because as Sheila and I have been talking, there's some movement in this design that makes it feel kind of like waves under the sea. So that mystery is definitely coming. Oh, and Paula also wanted me to mention that for Flyaway, don't forget backing kits, borders, the optional stitches, boost kits, those all end next Friday as well. So we can get all of our orders in to make sure we get all the fabric that you guys ordered. And lastly, on the update, the virtual quilt show in the Cotton Cuts Vault, it ends this weekend. So last week I talked about quilt shows. And so Lincoln and Dominic, their spring break project was to create a virtual quilt booth for us and actually put up all the things that we had at the quilt show. So that way you guys could shop virtually with us if you weren't able to join us in person in St. Louis. Okay, let's talk about Mystery 5.0. So the mini mystery is this Saturday. So this is something we've been talking about for a couple shows. We introduced the whole program. We had some pre-cut kits that I think sold out in like 6 or 8 hours. They were off the shelf, you guys. And now we're having some shop your stash options. So the idea is if you miss the pre-cut kit, you can shop your stash and still participate. Now, what is going to happen on Saturday is we have 2 events happening in the Mystery 5.0 Facebook group, which Paula has put on the group. It's also pinned in the Facebook page if you get lost, or if you search for Cotton Cuts Mystery 5.0, you can find it. There's going to be 2 events going on. One is going to be in the morning, and then one is going to be in the afternoon. Now, we have to do them separately because for the pre-cut kits, we had to make some design changes that actually cause it to finish differently and go through a different process than Shop Your Stash. So some of you will participate in the morning, some in the afternoon. Now, I've heard some people want to do both. That's you. If you want to participate in both and you want to watch all the videos and all the sessions, then that is absolutely fine and fantastic. No one is going to tell you no, But if you're shopping your stash, I'm going to recommend you shut down your notifications on that group in the morning. And then when you log in at noon, you'll be able to see it. And what's going to happen is we will be uploading files into the group, into the file section. And we're also going to be dropping companion videos for each one. So this is not a live event. Like, it's not going to be me here on the camera where you guys can ask questions for 3 or 4 hours at a time, guys. I don't have that much energy. But what we're going to do is we're going to drop videos giving instructions about each of the clue. We're going to give you the actual printed page of the clue into the Facebook group, and then we'll be able to sew them. Now, my team is going to be all over that Facebook group, including myself. And so we will be able there to answer any questions, give you guys any help, do anything that you guys need to be able to keep you guys sewing. Now, since these are videos and clues that are posted in the group, if you get ahead, you unfortunately have to wait just a little. 20 minutes feels like a good kind of average time. Understanding that some of you are going to finish faster and some might take longer. If it takes you longer, that's fine. Just don't watch the next video, or just don't download the next clue. Or if, say, something life happens and you're pulled away from your machine, you can come back and watch those videos at any time. So there's no race to this. If you do get pulled away and come back, you might accidentally end up seeing what the finished pillow looks like. Like, you'll be okay. You're still going to sew. This is going to be a fun project. And as I say in all the videos, we're getting used to a new process of doing the mystery quilt. So this is a mini block. It's relatively easy to go together. We've been sewing a lot here in the shop, but the idea is a new way of writing instructions, a new way of assembling clues, and a new way of thinking about a mystery in a shorter form fashion that is not the full 10 months that we do with the Grand PMQ. Now, mind you, me, I love the 10 months because I like the, hey, if I miss a month or two, I can binge 2 or 3 months together and I don't feel like such a slacker. But there are many people who are like, I want to sew and I want to get in, I want to do 1 a week and I want to get my clue and I want to be off and going. And that is fine and fantastic. So that's the quilt that this is for you. So we've got the mini coming up on this Saturday. Okay, Paula put together a whole list of preparation for you guys that are joining us. So make sure that clearly you're going to need a sewing machine. That's the very first item on the list. Clearly, you're going to need a sewing machine. Make sure it's threaded and ready to sew. In order to minimize any frustrations or headaches, make sure you have all your needles, you have a full bobbin, you have thread. Make sure you've got all of your fabric laid out and labeled if you can. Make sure you have all your cutting tools. If you're doing your shop, your stash, you need your cutting tools. The pre-cut kits, we have to make one minor little cut on a strip, and that'll be explained in all the videos. So that's a quick cut. You shouldn't need anything. The seam ripper, Paul is recommending have handy. I mean, accidents happen, and you don't want to be like searching around your sewing room for your seam rippers. Make sure your iron is hot and plugged in. And also, she put personal comfort items on here. This is how comprehensive Paula is. Personal comfort items. So make sure you have your beverages and your snacks, your coffee, your water, your tea. For me, it would be peanut M&Ms. I got to make sure I have that. Now, mind you, if you're joining me at 9 a.m., I would say probably not wine or anything alcoholic. So for those of you guys that know me during our live sales, I always have a thematic beverage. 9 o'clock's a little early. I feel like coffee and tea is probably more the way to go, but definitely peanut M&Ms. All right. So we are generally super excited about this Mystery 5.0 gang. And we've made these blocks. They're super awesome. We've done the pre-cuts. We've also done a block in Shop Your Stash. And so you guys will be able to see how that comes together. And again, it's just getting used to a new process. Now, if you're not able to join us on the Saturday day, that's absolutely okay. These videos and files will be in the group for several weeks, if not months. And you'll be able to log in on Tuesday next week or Thursday next week. And away we will go. Okay. That is all on the updates in the shop and everything that we should know for Saturday ahead of time. I'm going to let everyone know next week's show is going to be a rerun show. It'll be a best hit show at this time. I will be in Hawaii, unfortunately. I'm going to try and film something from Hawaii just to say hi to you guys before the live next week. But Paula has a surprise show. Think reveal as we get closer to the Wild West reveal. So I will not be here next week, but I will be here in 2 weeks. All right. Don't forget to stay to the end of today's show. We're giving away a $25 gift certificate to our shop to one person who answers our question of the week. All right, so let's talk about today's topic. So today's topic is really focused about quilt project planning and the math that goes behind planning a quilt project. So some of us, this comes easy, right? I've interviewed a lot of quilters throughout the many years we've been doing this. And there are those that are engineers and math teachers, right? And when it comes to quilt planning and when it comes to thinking about sizes and when it comes to calculating dimensions, those folks get it. Like they can grid stuff out, they can color it, and they can run off. Then we've also got the creatives, right? And those are the people that are more interested in the fabric selection and that the math becomes challenging. So what we wanted to do was give you just enough planning knowledge and math knowledge to make you dangerous enough to be confident to ask questions when you want to do something with the pattern that you purchase. Now, this is not going to be comprehensive and complete, but this is more than just to give you just a foundation, to give you confidence to go get more information that you need. And also, maybe if you do have that engineering math background, maybe some insider tips and tricks to think about ways differently than you have in the past. So the first thing is, this is a question we get asked a lot, is how much yardage is in my quilt top and how much yardage is in my quilt backing? So I'm going to answer the first question about backing. So Paula found a formula. It's actually pretty simple and straightforward, that in order to be able to estimate the fabric for your backing of your quilt quickly and easily is you take the width times the length, and then you divide it by the surface area of 1 yard of fabric. So, I mean, how do you calculate the surface area of 1 yard of fabric? It is actually 1,296 square inches, 1,296 square inches. So what you'll do is take your width times your height and then divide it by the number of square inches. And what that's going to give you is the number of yards, the number of surface area yards that you need to back your quilt. And so you could live dangerously and go and just buy like this. The equation she gave in the example was 4.9 yards. A, nobody's buying 4.9 yards. B, 5, I would feel a little hairy. That doesn't give you a lot of fraction for error, and it assumes perfect sewing and piecing. So in that case, this calculation is going to give you the minimum number of yardages that you will need to put on to the back of your quilt. And so as you're looking at this calculation, width times length divided by 1,296, and then that's going to give you the number of yards. Just be thinking about that as you're calculating and planning your quilt. So if you're making a quilt and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, it needs 10 yards for the backing. I didn't know that before I started. This is a fantastic way to know that before you start your quilt. So that way you can start thinking, because it can be really hard to walk into a quilt shop and need 6, 7, 8, 9 yards of a fabric. They might not have it, and you don't want to finish a quilt top and have to set it aside while you order something and wait for it to come in. Now, when it comes to the front, I wish there was a calculation that was this easy. So you can do this calculation to calculate the surface area of the top of your quilt. But what happens is that there is a lot of variability in how quilt tops are pieced together. I was asked this question at the show, like, hey, if I got this fabric, how big of a quilt could I make? And my response is always, how many pieces are you going to cut from it? Because when you're calculating the front of a quilt, it's not just what you see, but it's also what you don't see in the back, what gets encased in your seam allowance. And so if you have a quilt and it is just a single piece of fabric and that is your front, then yes, that is how much you're going to need. But the minute you start cutting it up and you start piecing it together, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller in all directions. And many, many, many times you can have more fabric in your seams than you actually have in the front of your quilt. So I know it would be awesome to be like, hey, I have 3 yards of fabric. How big can this quilt make? That's going to depend on your pattern and how complex the pattern is and how many seams you actually have. Josie says she tries to buy wide fabrics when they're on sale. That is a fantastic tip for the back of the fabric. You do actually have extras depending on how big your quilt is when you buy the wide back fabric. Does the backing calculation work for 60-inch or a 90-inch wide back? So you would have to change the 1,296, Janae, because you would need to calculate the surface area of a yard. And so I would think for the 60-inch and the 90-inch, it would be that times the 36 inches, and that would change your 1296 number. The 1296 number works on standard width of fabric. Say that twice. Width of fabric, which is 40 to 42 inches wide. And as quilters know, that 42 to 44 inches is variable, because sometimes you get selvages that are like this, and sometimes you get selvages that are like this. Trust me, it wreaks havoc on us when we're die cutting all the time. Working on a Valentine's quilt with you guys on in the background. Fantastic. Lindsay, that's a fantastic use of Valentine's. You'll have it done in plenty of time. Okay, let's see here. Now, all of this, the backing and the front, assumes that you're working with non-directional fabric, right? And so if you're working with fabric that has a repeating pattern, or that has a specific direction, or a pattern that you were choosing to fussy cut, you're going to need more yardage. So blow these numbers out of the water. You will have to add, in this sheet, Paula says 10 to 20%. I would say it's probably closer to 30 to 40%. So on your back of your quilt, say you found this awesome herringbone. And so efficiently, you're going to cut one with the fabric, and then you're going to piece these two pieces. You will have a herringbone that is then going to go like this on the back of your quilt. And so if that's you and you're absolutely A-okay with that, then you can be lean and efficient. But if you want your directional fabric to be the same direction on the back of your quilts, then you are going to need to buy more yardage, because you are going to need to buy more yardage because you are going to need to account for the fact that your fabric is directional and you won't be able to efficiently piece it together. Made by Misty is that including the additional 4 to 5 per side for the quilting? So Misty, that is not. So when we're talking about this calculation, this is the minimum number of yardages you will need. Now you can account for the 4 to 5 by just changing your height and your width, right? So instead of it, my quilt is 70 by 90. If you want to say my quilt is 78 by 98, then that'll get you to the minimum cut you're going to need if you're sending it to a long arm quilter. Fantastic clarifying question, Misty. Thank you. All right. Now, if you're fussy cutting, right? So if you're fussy cutting, you need to make sure that you get all the repeats that you need. I've done a ton of EPP where I fussy cut the Tula Pink fabrics out, and I can get maybe like 3 hexagons in a fat quarter. And you need to make sure that if you're expecting to have 24 of those, you're going to need a lot more yardage than if you were cutting them side by side super efficiently. So anything directional, anything with a pattern, anything repeat, anything you want to fussy cut, you have to add on more yardage because of the way that you are cutting it. Now, if you're lean and efficient and you're using a solid or using something that's an all over print, which is a fantastic choice, then it really doesn't matter how you piece it together on the back of your quilt. So those are the considerations. I know a lot of people are like, I really love this fabric. I'm only going to need 4.5 yards for the back. And then when they get it, you see the back and it's got all sorts of contradictory directions. That's just something to consider. And if it's important to you, make sure you're compensating for it. Now, when it comes to changing your block sizes, so this is a question I've been asked frequently. So I'm making a project and my block finish is 12 by 12. And I want to make it 15 by 15. I want to make the same block and I just want to make it bigger. I want to make it 15 by 15. How do I do that? Do I just take all the shapes and just add whatever percentage to it? Do I just add 3 inches to everything? Do I add 50% more to all the dimensions when I cut it? And the answer to that, it's easy, but also hard because you have to flip your brains a little bit. And so when you're looking at the shape that you're cutting, so I'm going to make it simple. So say we have a 3.5 inch square and I want to make it a 6.5 inch square. So what you're going to do is you're going to drop that 1/2 inch and you're going to double it. And then you're going to add the 1/2 inch back to it. And so I think the 3 inch square is kind of an interesting position. So say I want to make it from 3 to 4.5 inches, right? So I want to make my finished square 4.5 inches starting from 3. So I'm going to cut my 3.5. That's what I would normally call for. If I want to go 1.5, I want to do 4.5 and then add my seam allowance back to it. So the easiest way to scale your cutting instructions is to take away your seam allowance, scale it, and then add your seam allowance back to it. Do not take your cutting dimensions and double them. Do not take your cutting dimensions and do it 1.5 times. Take your cutting dimensions, subtract out your seam allowance, then multiply it and add your seam allowance back into it. That's how you can scale a pattern both up and down. So say you want to make it bigger or say you want to make it smaller. So definitely before you look at it, just take those parts, take away your seam allowance, scale it, and then add it back in. When you get to triangles, it's crazy. In that situation, I would same thing, take away your seam allowance, scale it, And then I would cut it a little bigger so you can trim it back down with your actual size. But typically when you're scaling, that's what you want to look at. Also, you might find a pattern and you're like, I love this pattern, but I wish it was a little wider, or I wish it was a little taller. So there's a couple ways you can do that. If it's an actual block, you can just add another row of blocks. And I know that sometimes we get stuck in our own heads and we think, I have a pattern, I can only make the exact pattern. But if you want to repeat another layer of blocks, it is your quilt. Just repeat that number of rows and number of columns, and you can make it wider or you can make it longer. Now, we had a whole show where we talked about borders. That is another way. If you have a pattern for a queen and you want to make it a king, where it's not necessarily so easy because you don't need to make it longer, you just need to make it wider, you can add borders to get it to the size that you need. When you're adding these things, I think it's interesting to think that if I have a quilt that is, I'm going to make it 6 by 6, okay, 6 blocks by 6 blocks. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this half the size. And so you think that by taking it down to 3 by 3, you've made it half its size. You've actually made it a quarter of its size. That's not half the size. A 6 by 6 quilt does not get halved when you go 3 by 3. It actually goes 25%. So as you're thinking about adding rows and taking them away, I want to break you guys from the habit of, if I double it, I'll just add twice as many rows and twice as many columns. That's actually gonna make it 400 times its size. So let's see here. All right, Erin, that's a fantastic idea. Let me see what we can do with our blog to see if we can get a video tutorial about how to scale. Take away the seam allowance, multiply, and then add it back in. I think that's an interesting concept that I've been asked many times, that it's again, the engineering mindset versus the visual mindset. So let's see if we can get something up for you about that. All right. Yeah. So I think it's like, hey, I've got this pattern. I'm going to make this twice as big. And you take your 6 by 6 and all of a sudden you make it 12 by 12. And now instead of 36 blocks, you have 144 blocks, and you've made a quilt for roughly a giant. So let's just, when you're thinking about it, doubling doesn't necessarily mean doubling the rows and doubling the height. Doop. So how do you do this? How do you think about these things of scaling up and scaling down and calculating yardage that you're going to need? And so there are some tips and tricks. And so the first one is to actually sketch your layout. And it's becoming harder to find, but graph paper is a quilter's best friend. If you can find a notebook with graph paper in it, that is gold and money. And all you have to do is, when you get the grid, is try and figure out, do you want those little squares to be 1 inch, 2 inch, or 3 inch? And then you can map out and sketch. And I do this all the time. I have a scrap piece of paper. I have a back of an envelope. And I mean, I will sketch and draw when I'm thinking of backing and how I'm going to piece it. And I'm estimating, and I'm always adding a factor of safety on top of it. But sketching things out super helps the visual person. Plus, you buy your fabric and in 2 weeks you forget how you planned it. But if you have it written down, you can reference back to that paper. You can reference back to your calculations and know what you were thinking, versus, and this has happened to me, I get 4 yards in and I'm like, this is never going to work. How did I think this was going to work? If I have that paper to reference back to, then I will know what I was thinking and I will know how I divided it out. Stacy has a fantastic suggestion. There's graph paper online. I'm sure if you Google, hey, graph paper downloads online, you can definitely find it. Made by Misty uses Excel. Yes. So I used to have, I think it was the Excel before the Excel when it was Lotus, where you'd modify the column heights down to be the same as the row, and then you would print borders. I've definitely done that before, Misty. Let's see here. Make sure that you're labeling everything clearly. So that way, when you're planning things out, and say you're planning out a quilt and you've got it mostly done and then you set it aside. This happens to me. I have to spend so much time, if I haven't clearly labeled it, when I come back to it, trying to rethink what I was thinking at the time when I was making it. And I feel like leaving that note to myself is a gift to my future self. I like to think of it that way. We're giving a gift to our future self by writing ourselves a note for when we come back to that project. So that way we don't have to recalculate everything. Let's see here. Rachel's talking about printers have templates that you can choose and print out. Yes, that is another fantastic way to get graph paper. I'm more old school. I feel like I've got to have that like notebook where I can tear off my graph paper, or a spiral bound. Yeah, and I think printers also are becoming harder to find, Rachel, as well. Like my husband keeps wanting to get rid of our printer. I don't know why. But yes, I feel like all this paper-based system might be being retired, but I keep it around. Gianna says her rule is to make notes like a stupid person so that they would have to understand them later. Gianna, that is the safest way. Is again, if you're giving yourself instead of saying I'm making notes for a stupid person, I'm giving my future self a gift by being very detailed in what I am communicating here. So another tip is to use quilting calculators. And so there's 5 resources that we found for quilting calculators. Some of these have been around longer than others. Some are more savvy than others, but I wanted to give you 5 calculator resources that you guys could use to go to for both quilt planning, quilt design, quilt scaling, and also calculating yardages for your top and your back. And so the first one, this is one that's been out there for a long time, is Robert Kaufman's Quilt Calculator app. And so it's actually an app. It was on their website. They've migrated it to an app. And you can calculate fabric yardage. How much binding do you need? That's another trick. When you're doing your binding around the perimeter, how you calculate perimeter of a shape. My boys, they're taking geometry right now. So I could definitely, we had to do some triangles last week. I was like, hey, I need some help calculating 2√2 type of thing. But so the Robert Kaufman Quilt Calculator app is fantastic for helping calculate fabric yardage very quickly. It does the simple height, width, and then calculates the surface area for you. Judy Hebert uses the Robert Kaufman app. Let's see here. Rachel's talking about her Eco Tank on her printer, and it lasts forever, 1,000 pages before it had to fill the black, and the color costs just as much as the black. That is a fantastic. We're always looking for printers here in the shop. The second resource to share with everybody is the Quilting Calc by Quilters Paradise. And so this is the same thing. This is Robert Kaufman's kind of the simplified version. The Quilting Calc is kind of the next more complicated version of a calculator. You can put in more details about it in order to be able to understand any of the dimensions that you need to give forecasting for backing, for binding, all of those good things. And it'll even give you information about your batting as well. Pre-quilt, this is one I know well because I use pre-quilt for personal work. And so pre-quilt is actually a design platform for designing your quilt tops. And you put in what you want your grid to do, and you can scale it up and down. You can import fabric collections from manufacturers into pre-quilt, and you can actually see what your quilt will look like in different fabrics. It has a fantastic randomized feature, which when you click randomize, it'll shuffle all your fabrics up so you can see how your quilts will look in different fabrics. Pre-quilt is fantastic. They keep adding more and more features. And if that feels daunting, designing your own quilts and filling in colors and downloading fabrics, Pre-quilt also offers a lot of downloadable patterns that have been designed by the pre-quilt community. So if you're looking for pattern inspiration, you can log on, and because of the way the system is set up, it'll give you all the cutting directions, so you'll know exactly how much you need to create the quilts that have been created by the community. And so that's one of the benefits of that software. So I know when people talk about pre-quilt, it's all the design, but they also have a library of community generated quilts. So if you're looking for inspiration, it is a fantastic resource to use, and they're partnering with a lot of designers to come up with patterns that you can use their software for. All right, Stash Star Fabric app. So Stash Star Fabric app it's actually a way to organize your fabric inventory. I'm going to say that again. It organizes your fabric inventory. And so, oh, Rachel, yes, it is pre-quilt, and there's a free version too. Stash Star Fabric app organizes your inventory. And so that might be easier for some than others. When I think about organizing my inventory, it feels daunting. But at the same time, if I'm organizing my inventory, then I feel like if I'm looking for a blue fabric and there was an app to be able to help me find all the blue fabrics in my stash without me having to dig through all of my tubs of blue fabric, I feel like this has a high amount of value. I feel like the effort here is setting it up, so making sure that you put all your inventory into the app and then also maintaining it. But it also helps you calculate the amount of yardage that you have of each product, of each in your stash. So say you have a project and you need 3 yards of blue, then if you only have 4 yards in inventory, it's going to help you figure out which fabrics you have and which you should use. Rachel at Positively Stitched says she uses Airtable for inventory purposes. That's another fantastic use as well. I feel like And Rachel, you can agree or disagree. I feel like it's the setup and the maintenance are the two biggest hurdles. I feel like once it's in there, it's great and it's fantastic and you can play with it, but it's setting it up and then maintaining it. So, it's one of those, you just don't go to the quilt shop and buy fabric anymore. You go to the quilt shop, you buy fabric, and you have to upload it into Airtable or into Stash Star. Then there's quiltography, which is another digital quilt designing, and it's going to give you the yardage and fabric. So very similar to pre-quilt. And so I prefer pre-quilt. I feel like that's an easier click and drag. It's more intuitive from a design perspective. Plus, I like that pre-quilt has this community of quilts that you can go into if designing things is not your things. When you're planning as well, and I just watched a video the other night where they were talking about how to set up certain things in your house. I feel like planning for a project is the same way. And so I know we get stuck into like, hey, I've got my fabric. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to sew it. And my project's done, right? In that magic sphere of how quilting should work. One of the biggest tips that came from this video was to make sure that everything is close to where you need it when you need it. I don't know about you, but hey, I've been sewing away and all of a sudden a needle breaks. Now I need to go find my needles. And where are they? They're with my last project or maybe 2 projects ago. Or hey, I need my seam ripper. And hey, didn't I take it with me on that retreat? And it's still in the container that I haven't unpacked yet. And so one of the measures of success to help you be able to get to that optimized, I've got my fabric, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to stitch it, and I'm going to be done with my project, is making sure you know where all of your things are. So making sure you know where your ruler is, your rotary cutter, your mat, your fabric marking pens, your measuring tape, making sure that everything is where it should be. Now, this is really hard. I get it. I've been on that retreat and, I even hear like, okay, so I'm going to show you guys because this is the reality of what many of us face. So this is my container of stuff that I normally take on retreats, right? And so it's a container. It's got, you can see my scissors are here, my iron pad, my metal pin cushion. Oh, I even got my scissors and my rotary cutter, right? So that's mine. Is it by my sewing machine? No, it's here in the shop. Because it came here and migrated here. And so I don't have it at home. And literally 3 weeks ago, I was sewing and I was like, where's my rotary cutter at? Of course, I have the backups, right? And so I have the one that's been stashed over here, but Dominic took. But it's one of these, I have them all together. I just don't have them where I need them. And so as you're planning your project, making sure that they're where you need them, when you need them, is a huge measure of success. All right. Those are all the kind of quilt planning tips and tricks that we have. Again, not comprehensive, not complete. Hopefully just enough to give you negative confidence that if you're thinking about doing something or need more information, you know what to search when it comes to YouTube. That scaling, that taking the dimension and making it bigger, that is something that I get asked frequently. And I wish that there was a lot of very good resources out there for that. Ask an engineer, or we'll see if we can put something up on our blog. All right. That is everything for us today, gang. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Now, as we always do, find this video on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Instagram, and answer this question to be entered to win our $25 gift card to our shop. We will announce the winner tomorrow. So the first question is, I'm going to change it a little bit. Paula wrote this. And so tell us what your best quilt planning tip is. Now, this could be something and why. So what is your best quilt planning tip and why? Is it something that you've learned because you didn't do it? Is it something that you accidentally learned because you had to? Or is it something that you were told once upon a time and you live vicariously by and you can't think of doing it any other way? So let's go ahead and in the comments, wherever you find this video, answer that question. Let's see here. What's the biggest, for me, the biggest quilt planning tip is probably like where I've been the most frustrated is I am not one of those people that winds my bobbins. Like I aspire to be the person that when I start a project, I can sit at my machine and I can wind 5 or 6 bobbins at a time. That's not me, but I feel like that's, if I was aspirationally, that's my biggest planning because it just happened to me a couple days ago. I have a machine right here. Ran out of a bobbin. It's not that big of a deal to wind it, but I feel like if I was one of those people that did that. Now, here's where when the kids were younger, they used to love the bobbin winder on the machine because they like to just watch it thread. So I would get them to do that once a month and I would be good. They don't do that anymore. They're teenage boys. And so I feel like that's for me, the one answer I would say is making sure you always have full bobbins at the ready when you need them. Let's see here. I subscribe to Java and Platinum. What do I do if I want both Modern, Maker, and Classic on select months? So in that case, Donna, when you get your email for your Platinum membership, just go ahead and reply to the email and let them know what you would like when you see the previews of all the different colorways. So Rachel, can you go over again the Platinum and when the order cutoffs are? So you have to sign up by the end of this month, by the 30, I think, how many days are in March, January, March, by the 31st of this month to get April's. If you sign up on April 1st, you will get May's. That's how the calendar works. So in order to get the next month's boxes, you have to sign up by the last day of the month prior. That's just because Java and Chroma ship on the 10th, and we don't want a lot of backlog of, okay, someone signed up on the 5th, now we got to get an email and a response, and they want a Java and Chroma, and all of a sudden it's the 12th. Let's see here. I'm seeing comments about Catherine saying she always uses fat quarters, so she has to plan out all of her cutting. That's a fantastic tip and trick. Watch some quilt planning videos first. Yes, making sure that you know all the tips. I would say building on Jana, watching some quilt planning videos. I also think reading through all the instructions so you know where you're going is another fantastic planning tip. Because sometimes you may like, hey, why am I cutting it this way? It would be easier if I did this. And then 4 steps into the future, you realize why it was done that way. And it definitely hurts. So label, all supplies in a storage tub so I don't have to find the pieces. Yeah, I think a lot of people use those 12 by 12 scrapbooking boxes, and they keep all of their parts and pieces inside of it, so it's easy to find. And then you can also stack them and label what the project is inside of them. I use Ziploc bags for that, and I have my bag of Ziploc bags. All the fabric and all the backing, keep all the fabric. You guys, these are fantastic tips and tricks. If you're watching us on replay, make sure you go back through and read all these tips and tricks. They are awesome and fantastic and amazing. All right, next week we will be on a replay. I will be in Hawaii, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks. We will have another fantastic topic. We will have shipped a ton of stuff in the 2 weeks that I will be gone, but I will see you all soon. That's it for me today, gang. Happy sewing. We will see you guys Saturday at the Mystery 50 sewing party, and we will talk then. All right, everybody. Bye now. And cut. Thank you so much for watching our video. We have so much fun making these, and we hope that you were both delighted and inspired by what you just watched. This video was sponsored by Cotton Cuts. Cotton Cuts is your one stop for all the best fabric and thread memberships. Love fabric? We've got you covered. Love thread? We've got you covered. We get that no 2 quilters are cut from the same cloth, which is why our memberships are as unique as you. We also have the largest block of the month in the world. Over 4,000 detectives solve our puzzle mystery quilts every year, and you can join them. Simply go to cottoncuts.com to learn more about all the awesome and fun things that we're doing. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to make sure you get all of our new fresh content every time it comes out. Thank you so much. Happy sewing enthusiasts, and we will see you soon. Bye now.